When Naruto, Sasuke, Minato, and Tobirama were fighting against Ten Tails Obito, they found themselves in quite a pickle. Despite their best efforts, with the four combatants pulling off this amazing combo, Minato and Tobirama syncing up their flying Raijin, so that Naruto and Sasuke could fuse their Amaterasu and Wind-style Rasen Shuriken to hit Obito with it, they dealt no damage. And obviously, that shouldn't be possible, right? A Wind-style Rasen Shuriken infused with a powerful Inferno-style jutsu? Each of those two jutsus by themselves are going to be extremely powerful, so when you combine them, especially taking into consideration that Wind-style enhances Fire-style, it should be dealing a lot of damage, but Obito was literally unscathed. And the reason for that was because the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails gains access to Yin-Yang style, the most powerful release in the Naruto series pretty much. One of the abilities Yin-Yang release gives you access to is the ability to literally nullify ninjutsu, so ninjutsu is just not gonna work on you. It will deal no damage, be completely ineffective, and that's why the Wind style combined with the Amaterasu just didn't work at all. So obviously Naruto, Sasuke, Minato, and Tobirama are fighting for their lives there. I mean, technically Minato and Tobirama were already dead, but they were fighting for the world, right? So they had to come up with a counter for it. They had to find a way to deal damage against Obito. Now the obvious choice would be to just use raw taijutsu, physical power, punch Obito into submission. And even though all those four fighters are really good at taijutsu, they wouldn't be physically powerful enough to defeat Ten Tails Obito with raw taijutsu. All four of them are really fast, but they just wouldn't be able to punch Juubito with enough power to do anything substantial. I guess you could argue Naruto with KCM was the strongest character there when it comes to just physical strength, but even him wouldn't do much. Like, if you brought in my guy and he used the 8th gate, I would even say it's GG for Juubito. But at that point, Guy was recovering himself from the very harsh fight against Madara and Obito where he had to use the 7th gates and Hirodora, so they just had to come up with another interesting counter. And the one who figures it out, oddly enough, is going to be Naruto. You see, before Gamakichi got unsummoned because of the time limits of the summon, he spat some weird, viscous, white fluid at Juubito. And instead of simply ignoring it because ninjutsu just cannot affect Juubito, he uses his truth-seeking orbs to block it, which meant that fluid offered some level of threat to Juubito. And so Naruto deduces that it's because Gamakichi's jutsu was imbued with sage energy, just like the Toujutsus usually are. That's when Naruto thinks about using his own Sage Mode, and he manages to strike Juubito with his Rasengan, aided by a flying Raijin by Tobirama. So they found a way to counter Juubito and actually deal damage. Now, initially the problem for Naruto was that he simply couldn't use Sage Mode alongside the Nine Tails. However, Naruto had synced up the Nine Tails with Sage Mode once before when he was face to face with Nagato because of his anger, and so it wasn't terribly difficult for him to master KCM2 with Sage Mode. The only reason why he couldn't use Sage Mode beforehand while using the Nine Tails as chakra was because the Nine Tails simply didn't really allow Naruto to do that. Especially when it came to Ma and Pa sitting on Naruto's shoulders, the Nine Tails would be kinda pissed, and even jealous I could say, and kick them out. But now Naruto has Sage Mode KCM2, which is great because all his Bijudamas, all his Rasengan varieties are gonna be imbued with Sage energy. And honestly, Sage energy at that point is not gonna make a massive difference. Yes, it's gonna make Naruto marginally more powerful in KCM2, but the main thing that it's gonna give him is the ability to just hit Obito and deal actual damage because the jutsus are imbued with Sage energy. Otherwise, it would just be like their first Rasen Shuriken Amaterasu they aimed against Juubito and it wouldn't do anything. So Naruto's good to go when it comes to that fight. But, narratively speaking, you're gonna face a little bit of a problem here, because Naruto and Sasuke are supposed to fight alongside each other against the main antagonist of the moment. That's the whole point, isn't it? Sasuke has returned to the battlefield to aid in their efforts in the War Arc. Obviously, Sasuke has his own hidden agenda to do that, but that's gonna be more important later. Now, Sasuke has to be relevant. Now, you may say he doesn't have to be as relevant as Naruto, but he has to be pretty close. At least when it comes to the power levels of the characters and how strong they are and useful they are against Juubito. If nothing else, to keep the tension high for their eventual final confrontation in the Valley of the End. Like, if Naruto completely eclipsed Sasuke in the fight against Juubito, the fight against Sasuke in the Valley of the End would just have no tension. Because then you're just gonna think, well, I mean, Naruto is stronger, he's gonna win. It's not a very interesting fight. But the issue for Sasuke here is that he simply does not have access to Sage Energy, and therefore, he doesn't really have much to do against Juubito here, right? I mean, I guess you could say he could use Taijutsu, but Sasuke wouldn't be able to punch Juubito into death or anything. To be fair, he was able to pierce Jubidara with his just regular sword by substituting with a sword using a Minato Chikara. So I guess the sword could also deal damage to Juubito, but Madara completely shrugged that off, even though the sword literally pierced his heart because of the insane regeneration that the 10 Tails grants you. And I guess another option could be Genjutsu? We don't know if Yin Yang also makes you immune to Genjutsu, which seems likely if the caster of the Genjutsu does not have access to Sage of Six Paths chakra and imbues his own Genjutsu with it. But even if that's not the case, Obito has a Sharingan and a Rinnegan, which makes him pretty tough against Ocular Genjutsu especially. And Sasuke's Ocular Genjutsu is good, but it's not like Tsukuyomi or anything. His ninjutsu is his main thing. And obviously what's going to be more impactful in the fight against Juubito, but if he can't hit Juubito with it, what can you do? Well, you find a way to give Sasuke Sage Energy. Kishimoto established in the Itachi and Sasuke vs Kabuto fight that the Curse Mark energy is actually nature energy. The same energy that powers Sage Mode for all the Sage Mode characters. So the Curse Mark could work. It could grant Sasuke that nature energy that imbues his jutsus with this different type of chakra that's going to allow them to do any damage to Juubito. And that would be perfect if Sasuke hadn't lost his Curse Mark after the fight against Itachi, which was a big mistake. I made a whole video about why Sasuke losing the Curse Mark after the fight against Itachi is not a great idea from a storytelling perspective, from a character writing perspective, and just also from a cool factor perspective. But this is also another problem right here. Sasuke doesn't have something to fight against Juubito with. Naruto has Sage Mode, but Sasuke doesn't, so technically Naruto broke the rule of Naruto and Sasuke always getting an upgrade pretty much at the same time in the story and remain pretty much at the same level, because Naruto got Sage Mode and he was able to acquire KCM 1 and KCM 2, while Sasuke got his Mangekyo Sharingan as Naruto got Sage Mode, but he lost his Curse Mark and also his Orochimaru abilities. And then in the War Arc, Naruto gets KCM 1 and Sasuke gets the EMS, but then Naruto gets KCM 2, Sasuke gets nothing, and Naruto is able to use Sage Mode on top of KCM 2 and Sasuke also gets nothing. So it would have been good if Sasuke at least had the Curse Mark to counteract that, but alas, he doesn't. However, Kishimoto has a different solution. He brings in Jugo, the original Curse Mark user. Well, not really a Curse Mark user, but the originator of the Curse Mark, because he is just able to draw in the nature energy and become consumed by the Curse Mark energy, and that's his ability, that's his clan's ability. It's what Orochimaru used to base the Curse Mark off of. And because Sasuke and Jugo had a similar affinity to the Curse Mark energy, so much so that when Sasuke fought against Killer Bee and Killer Bee caved in Sasuke's chest, Jugo was able to essentially donate a piece of his body so that he could plug in Sasuke's hole. So in the war, it's gonna be Jugo again to help out Sasuke and provide the Sage energy. Now the way he does that is quite interesting. As the battle against Juubito is getting towards its climax, Sasuke uses his Susanoo, and Jugo kinda hops on board and uses his curse mark to spread it around Sasuke's Susanoo. Meanwhile, Naruto is fighting with his Kurama avatar and Sage Mode, meaning that both Naruto and Sasuke had nature energy imbued in their avatar/Susanoos and also their ninjutsu attacks, and so they could deal damage to Obito in the Ten-Tailed state. And that section of the fight against Juubito is actually pretty damn interesting. We get a very emotional scene of Naruto's thoughts about people who have died, and those thoughts are being transmitted to the entire alliance because of Ino's jutsu. So even characters that are dead, like Hiruzen, who has been dead for a while, finds out that Asuma, his son, actually died, for example. Also, the fight sequence and choreography itself is not bad, especially in the manga. It's not great in the anime, but it's good in the manga. However, what I want to draw attention to is Sasuke's Susanoo, or his curse mark Susanoo. Now, I'm not a fan of the state of the Susanoo that he uses here. It's not quite the armored Susanoo, it's that muscly Susanoo that comes before it. And Sasuke specifically looks kind of ugly. I never really liked this version of Sasuke's Susanoo. It's probably the ugliest Susanoo version Sasuke ever uses. And the legs make it a little goofy in my opinion. But what can you do? I mean, he had to move around with his Susanoo, so that's understandable. However, one thing that makes that Susanoo extremely cool is the curse mark. I just have to say, Sasuke's curse mark patterns are the coolest curse mark patterns in the entire series. Now, for some reason, even though it was Jugo using the curse mark, the Susanoo still acquired Sasuke's curse mark patterns, which, from an aesthetic standpoint, as I just said, is just great because Sasuke has the best curse mark patterns. However, does it make any sense from an in-universe perspective? The Susanoo even acquires that black cross-like structure on its face that Sasuke gets when he uses Curse Mark Stage 2, which also makes the Susanoo freaking cool, but that was Jugo's Curse Mark. Now, I guess you could say that because Jugo and Sasuke had a close affinity to the Curse Mark energy, that Jugo using the Curse Mark on Sasuke's Susanoo, using that cursed energy on a chakra avatar that's coming out of Sasuke, that the energy would take the shape of Sasuke's patterns because Jugo is simply a conduit for the nature energy to attach itself to Sasuke's Susanoo, so it's as if the Susanoo is using a curse mark, and the Susanoo's curse mark is literally Jugo himself. And so the Susanoo will get Sasuke's patterns. But a real issue I have with this scene, and this is more from an out-of-universe meta perspective, is just the fact that Jugo, this character that has been barely relevant in the entire story and completely irrelevant over the last 200 chapters or so, is so present in this cathartic, extremely important fight in the War Arc against Juubito, the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails, the pinnacle of ninja, up until that point at least. It's Naruto using the Nine Tails, Sasuke using the Susanoo, the two main characters, against Juubito, the man carrying all Nine Tail beasts fused into the Ten Tails inside himself, and then there's Jugo next to Sasuke because he has to power Sasuke's Susanoo. Now I understand it had to be Jugo there because he's the only one who can mechanically, from a plot perspective, give Sasuke the power-up he needed for that moment, but it's strange regardless. I mean, Jugo is such an irrelevant character that he's never really had a 1v1 fight in the entire series. When it comes to shonen manga as a whole, and Naruto is no exception to that, when a character is supposed to have a degree of importance in the series, he will at least have one 1v1 fight. Like, at least for the character's introduction. A fight that will serve to show the character's motivations, general perspective in life, personality and everything, jutsus even. And yeah, we get that Jugo is a gentle giant with a bipolar disorder, and that's from the get-go, and I guess you could even say he technically had a 1v1 fight against Suigetsu the first time we're getting introduced to Jugo, but that's a very quick fight, if you can even call it that. They swap a few blows and Sasuke immediately paralyzes and stops them with his snakes. So no, Jugo barely ever does anything. He's just helpful to Sasuke a few times, and he's here now, fighting against Juubito. It's not even as if Sasuke brought him along. No, he just got lucky Jugo was around and found Sasuke along the way with Suigetsu, so they could give Sasuke the scroll to resurrect the 4 first Hokage alongside Orochimaru and everything. But now all of a sudden, Jugo finds himself in this extremely important and climactic situation against Juubito. I mean, imagine if it was someone like Baki, the Sand Sensei, instead. If he was the one in the middle of that fight, alongside Naruto and Sasuke, fighting against Juubito, and it had to be him for whatever reason in the story. An extremely random, unimportant character in the series is in one of the most climactic moments. Not as a focus, but still present. If you were to include a third ninja there, because at that point of the fight, Minato and Tobirama are not even fighting against Juubito anymore, there are so many more interesting options than Jugo. And I'm not complaining Minato and Tobirama are not involved anymore, that makes sense. They're very much distracted by the Divine Tree, and it's good for us to have some very nice moments of Naruto and Sasuke fighting alongside each other against Juubito, which culminates into the majestic attire Susanoo, and yeah, when that happens, Naruto calls forth the other members of the Konoha 12 so they can use Rasengans that Naruto gives them on top of the Nine Tails' tails. They use those Rasengans to break through Obito's truth-seeking orb guards, which allows the majestic attire Susanoo to clash against the Naboko's sword and eventually beat Juubito. Now, Sakura was not among the ones using the Rasengan. She was using her summoning jutsu alongside Tsunade to bring Katsuyu and provide her healing ninjutsu to Katsuyu so that she could heal people around. But honestly, I mean, Sakura should have been there. It's Naruto and Sasuke using the majestic attire Susanoo, and everybody is doing the Rasengan, but Sakura isn't. The member of Team 7, and like Tenten is using the Rasengan. Also, Sai is using the Rasengan. Why? Well, regardless of that, there's one interesting thing that happens before they even combine the Susanoo and the Nine Tails to create a majestic attire Susanoo, which is that Jugo hops off of Sasuke's Susanoo. And I don't really know how that works, because the sword that clashes against the sword of the Naboko is a Susanoo sword. And in order for it to do any substantial damage to Obito or the truth-seeking orbs in general, it needs to be laced with nature energy. And if Jugo hopped off the Nine Tails, even though I kinda like that because it would be weird for Jugo to be there as Naruto and Sasuke use the majestic attire Susanoo with the other members of the Konoha 12, Sasuke doesn't have nature energy anymore to use. So what happens there? I guess, and this is the only feasible explanation, because the Nine Tails fused with the Susanoo during the majestic attire Susanoo, Naruto could transfer his own sage energy into the Susanoo and therefore the Susanoo sword. And that's how the Susanoo sword was able to deal damage at all against the Naboko sword, and also Juubito when he finally slashed him. And yeah, I'm kinda glad Jugo was not present for that scene, even though it may cause this weird inconsistency here, but we can explain with Naruto providing the sage energy even though there's no indication that that happened. And the thing is, this could have been so easily solved if Sasuke had simply kept his curse mark. I mean, he could use his curse mark Susanoo pretty much all the time, and it looks freaking cool. Imagine a perfect Susanoo with the curse mark patterns. That would be great. Now, maybe Kishimoto wouldn't want the majestic attire Susanoo Sasuke uses with Naruto to have the curse mark patterns, but then you can just use the excuse that Naruto transfers some sage energy to Sasuke, whatever. But still, I can't really stand Jugo being there for such a pivotal moment. It's not even that I hate Jugo or anything, it's just completely out of place. Because yeah, other than that, Curse Mark Susanoo, thumbs up, great idea. Like this video, please do so, subscribe, and ring notifications if you haven't. Those things are really helpful and they take 2 seconds. Watch the video showing up on your screen for more cool Naruto content, and thank you so much for watching.